Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you on this Wednesday evening. Got a great show planned out for you guys today. We've got more Trump-Giuliani drama. That's fun. A new poll on how many people, Trump supporters included, support shutting down the government. We also have the Coast Guard. One of the leaders, spokespersons, whatever, for the Coast Guard, also talking about their thoughts about the Trump shutdown. That's interesting. Then we're going to shift away from shutdown news. We're going to talk about Ben Stein versus AOC. So this is the first salvo. You wouldn't believe the comparison he made between AOC and, well, you'll see. I don't want to give too much away. Then we also have big story on Joe Biden. So Joe Biden, he's expected to run. No, that's not what we're going to be talking about. It's what he was doing during the midterm election. So you're going to love that story. It's frustrating, but I think it's really important to give in the context, especially since he's considering a run, and of course, the expected run of Bernie Sanders as well. Now, how that has to tie in, I will explain later on. But anyway, yes, fun show that we have planned for you guys today. There's also some craziness going on here, and it's breaking news, and we don't have all the information. But it appears that President Trump is now backing a coup in Venezuela. So that's kind of big news. That's actually really huge. Of course, President Trump, I think, tweeted on behalf of, let me see here. Trump said, I've got some different quotes here from President Trump, but I want to try to find the right one. Since I didn't actually set up this segment, because this is like big breaking news, whatever. But basically what happened is there is a opposition leader who just declared himself president of Venezuela. Well, Venezuela already has a president, it's Nicolas Maduro, right? And whether you agree with him or not, he is literally the president. Now, of course, there are people that, on the right especially, and of course in the right wing of the country are saying, no, he's an illegitimate president, and therefore we don't recognize him. So now Trump is saying, no, we recognize this other guy, the opposition leader. This is Juan Guaido as interim president of Venezuela. So now, basically, you can call it what you want, but the United States president is now backing a coup, and now there are, of course, a lot of other countries, Canada included, France, etc. So a lot of the West is saying, all right, we've had enough. We're going to back this guy publicly, and I don't know what that's going to turn into. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm massively against regime change, especially if we end up getting involved. And it appears that it is entirely possible that we might get involved. So, I'm not only that, but let me give you an example of why that is a possibility. In a briefing call, according to NBC News, senior administration officials told reporters that all options are on the table if any actions are taken against Americans or U.S. interests or violence against Guaido. So, if there happens to be violence against the guy that just declared himself president in Venezuela, well, then all options are on the table when it comes to U.S. That includes military force. Oh, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Don't get involved. Again, don't get involved in other countries' dealings, right? Especially when it comes to military force. Look, I'm not at all interested in the Maduro government. But at the same time, I'm also really, really not interested in using force, right? I'm not interested. We're not there. Like, we shouldn't be getting involved. We shouldn't be actually trying to attack other countries or undermining their governments, even though we disagree with those governments. We shouldn't be able to do that. But here we are. We're getting involved. And, you know, I should have saw it. We probably should have saw it coming earlier because of all the attacks constantly. Fox News, right wing, the president, you know. And I think the president really just mirrors Fox News in basically criticizing Venezuela. It's none of our business. But hey, Venezuela's got oil, so it looks like now it's apparently our business. Great. So that sucks. Again, no love for the Maduro government, and there are some serious problems with Venezuela, some of which we are actually the cause of. Let's keep it real. But I don't want to get involved, and I hope we don't. I hope we don't have to, but it looks like we might. So here we go. President Trump leading the country and possibly the world in trying to overthrow another country and their government. Great. Fun. Okay, anyway. Let's move on. Let's go back to this country. All right. Now, Rudy Giuliani has had a hard time keeping his story straight, and that might be causing a little bit of friction in the White House, at least according to a report by Vanity Fair's Gabriel Sherman. Now, according to that report, which cites basically friends of the president and various officials, Trump is apparently furious at Giuliani for his recent botched cable news appearances. Well, if you want to blame somebody for the botched news appearances, you might want to blame Donald Trump. But I'll get to more of that in a few minutes. Now, first, the latest fiasco, Sherman writes, came on Monday when Giuliani participated in a rambling Q&A with the New Yorker's Isaac Chotiner. After telling him that he only had a moment before he took a shower, Giuliani unspooled a series of bizarre responses, at one point in the conversation even admitting that his legacy would be that, quote, he lied for Donald Trump. Let me give you that quote because I love this. It's one of my favorite quotes. He says, quote, I'm afraid it will be on my gravestone. Rudy Giuliani, he lied for Trump. Not surprised. Now, he also continues by saying, somehow, I don't think that will be it, but if it is, so what do I care? I'll be dead. I figure I can explain it to St. Peter. He'll be on my side. I don't know about that. But, look, what does that tell you, right? Look, it tells me that maybe just for a moment, Giuliani had a little bit of self-reflection at what he's doing. Maybe a little bit of his conscience peeking up before he stuffs it down and says, get out of here. I don't need you. I want to work for Donald Trump. Conscience, not necessary. But anyway, I love that because he's like, yeah, it'll be on my tombstone. Who talks like that in an interview? I don't understand why you would say these things. Maybe because he's going crazy because he's Trump's lawyer. Now, look, I've said before, you got to be crazy to be Donald Trump's lawyer. But in reality, it's actually really, really hard to represent someone like President Trump. I mean, there is a reason why every respectable lawyer has already left. And it's because Donald Trump is essentially impossible to deal with. So, and the reason I say that, by the way, is, look, we've got examples. For one, it's been shown that, look, he tells you to do something for him. Usually he tells you to lie or do something, and then you'll do it, right? Sean Spicer is a great example. Hey, Sean, go out and say this. Okay, Mr. President. And he says something, and then he gets blowback for it, and then Trump says something different, undermines him, and then throws Sean Spicer under the bus. That's what happened. Why do you think Sean Spicer isn't there? Why do you think, again, every respectable lawyer, because he'd do the same thing to his attorneys. They would go out and they would say something, and then it would be massively wrong, or it would be proven to be a lie. And then later on, Trump would yell at them and say, why'd you say that? Why'd you say that? Well, you told me to say that. No, I didn't. You did something wrong. And again and again and again, it keeps going the same way. So, and that's what's been happening with Rudy Giuliani. There's only one explanation for every single appearance as of late. Him having to continue to walk back statements, probably like the 4th time that he's had to do it, maybe 5th time, I don't know. He's been doing this a lot. So he goes and he says something on cable news or he has an interview. It goes poorly. He gets yelled at eventually at some point and then proven wrong and then has to say something else and walk back. Again, over and over and over, right? And that's got to be why he's going crazy. Now, according to Sherman's reporting, Trump is apparently furious with those recent appearances, according to 2 Republicans briefed on the president's thinking. Now, he said, quote, before Rudy stepped in it, Mueller had basically called BuzzFeed fake news. According to the sources, the debate is played out inside the West Wing over Giuliani's future due to all that. So, look, he messes up these appearances after the president basically got a win from Mueller saying that the BuzzFeed report was inaccurate. Rudy Giuliani messed it all up, started talking about tapes between Michael Cohen and Donald Trump, or there may be tapes or might not be tapes. And then he talked about the timing of Trump Tower Moscow and how he basically admitted that the negotiations for that were going on a lot longer than he had originally said. So he's lying. It's not truthful. So he gets caught in that. And then, of course, apparently Trump is pretty mad. And look, even if Trump isn't mad, because there's another report out saying that, oh no, his job's fine, he's not going to get fired, Donald Trump's not mad at him at all. But apparently there's a debate, as Sherman points out, in the White House whether or not Giuliani is going to stay or not. So now apparently Trump is being encouraged by several people, including Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner, to get rid of Giuliani before it's too late. What exactly would too late be? I mean, seriously. Now, outside advisors Corey Lewandowski and Dave Bossie, however, are saying, oh no, keep Giuliani. He's doing a fantastic job. Keep it up. One of the sources apparently told Sherman, quote, Trump is screaming. He's so mad at Rudy. So now, again, like I said, some of those insiders are asking, okay, well, what's wrong with Rudy? Rudy Giuliani. Boy, that was weird. Now, look, a former White House official did speculate that maybe Giuliani has, quote, lost his mind. That's possible. Again, we already talked about that, right? We've talked about how impossible it is to work for Donald Trump. Again, we find out, or we found out before, that he has literally asked people to do things for him that are illegal. And then when you don't do it, he gets mad at you. Now, that's another part that we actually didn't discuss. According to an account by an ex-Trump organization VP, Barbara Rez, we've talked about her on the show before. She gave an example of this. An architect had come to Trump's office to show him designs for the interiors. This was before he was president, obviously, and when he was in real estate. Now, this architect showed him designs for interiors of residential elevator cabs in Trump Tower, which also hosts businesses. Now, he noticed some dots next to some of the buttons, and he asked what they were. This was back in the 80s. He said, the architect replied, Braille. Trump said, get rid of it. Get rid of the Braille. The architect said, no, that would actually be against the law. His response, get rid of the expletive Braille. No blind people are going to live in Trump Tower. Just do it. Hey, break the law. I don't want Braille here. I want to be ableist, right? And say no blind people are ever going to live in Trump Tower. Get rid of it. It's an eyesore. I don't like it. But that's illegal. Get rid of it anyway. I don't care. Well, okay. Well, look, we go to another example, and this is former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson. Now, Tillerson said that Trump would demand that he do things for him that are against the law. In fact, he said, so often the president would say, here's what I want you to do, and here's how I want you to do it. And I would have to say to him, Mr. President, I understand what you want to do, but you can't do it that way. It violates the law. So this is a mission where he's saying, look, I want to do those things. I want to have that end result. But the way that you're doing it is literally illegal. I can't do that. And look, on and on, he continues to do the same thing and order people to do things that they shouldn't. And then when they don't, or when they do and it goes badly, they end up getting yelled at because Trump cannot take personal responsibility. So, and of course, you add in the constant lying, the backtracking, and the backpedaling, all that other stuff that I've mentioned, being thrown under the bus. And is it any wonder, when you look at all that stuff, why it would be maddening to work for Donald Trump? In fact, an outside Trump advisor had said, quote, everyone who works for Trump screws up because there's no way to please the guy. And so this is why Giuliani has mentioned before that he hates the job. He said that privately. And he said that also Mueller's report he thinks is going to be horrific for Donald Trump. Now, if that's true, you might be asking, then why the hell is he still there? What is keeping Giuliani there if he hates it so much? He can't help himself. He's got to get that attention. He craves that power, because that's the only reason people would stay working for somebody who is so hard to work with and frankly dumb. But it's the power. They're getting something from it. They're not just working for him because, oh yeah, no, I believe in making America great again. No, I believe in making my wallet great again. That's what it is. Or, getting attention, even bad attention. In fact, friends said the former New York mayor was embittered after being out of the limelight for years following his failed 2008 presidential campaign. And that he has been exhilarated by the press attention that comes with being Trump's lawyer. Sources said Giuliani often books his own interviews and frequently texts with television news anchors. One Giuliani friend told Sherman, quote, there's a school of thought that it's better to be famous and ridiculed than to be ignored. Well, for certain, he is famous and is being ridiculed consistently. Now, there is one thing apparently that also frustrates Giuliani, and that is the fact that being on TV now is not the same as being on TV back in 2008. It turns out, with social media now so ascendant and such a big part of people's lives, and the focus on fact-checking, which I think is great, if you're in the media, you say something and it's wrong, you're going to get fact-checked in real time. Now, apparently, that has been really, really tough for Giuliani, who's used to being able to market himself and talk about 9/11 consistently. In fact, that's the thing that he's most famous for, is marketing himself after 9/11. And he's used to being able to say whatever he wants, even if it's not true. And nowadays, you can't get away with that. And in fact, the friend said, quote, this has been a trial by fire for him. He can't just say whatever he wants because he's being fact-checked on Twitter. Every time he does anything, he gets caught. Oh, how sad. Poor Giuliani. Oh, you just can't go on TV and lie anymore without getting called out. Oh, that sucks. That must suck being you. Look, it's funny because none of these politicians, Giuliani's not a politician anymore, but Donald Trump sure is. They can't handle being caught up in a lie. I mean, at least Rudy Giuliani has a little bit of self-awareness and that little joke saying, oh, it'll be on my tombstone probably that I lied for Trump. But Donald Trump himself, well, he has no self-awareness and no shame, no conscience, nothing. He lies constantly and without any scruple. And of course, he expects everyone around him to lie the same way. And I think, personally, dealing with that is not only unsustainable, as you're going to be called out and fact-checked, but it's also unsustainable for a person's sanity. I think Giuliani is going to hit a breaking point. There's only so much that you're getting from this relationship being Donald Trump's lawyer. And at some point, it's not going to be enough. The fame and attention, etc., it's just not going to be enough to sustain it. So, that's my opinion on that. Okay. moving on. Let's go to the shutdown stuff. So the government shutdown over Donald Trump's ridiculous border wall continues. Right now, furloughed federal workers are pretty close to missing their second pay period, as of course many of them are continued to work for no pay. So they're being expected to show up to work, and they're not getting paid for it. They've missed 2 paychecks now, and so there is no end in sight too for the shutdown. Now, Trump continues to demand funding for his wall. He says that's the only way that we're going to end the shutdown. And so, you know, I'm not gonna budge on this. I'm firm. I'm as firm as the wall. Okay. In fact, earlier today, Donald Trump tweeted, "Build a wall and crime will fall." That's not true at all. Immigrants, both undocumented and documented immigrants, actually commit less crime overall than native-born Americans. But, you know, nice try, right? Now, at the same time, Democrats are actually standing firm. Weirdly enough, there's this whole thing with Nancy Pelosi basically disinviting Trump from the State of the Union, which I think is hilarious because, you want to shut down the government, then you're not going to come to the State of the Union. We're just not going to let you in. Either we're not going to let you in, or we're just not going to tape you and you can talk to nobody. No, great. Now, that's one thing, interestingly enough, and for this we go to Tony Schwartz, right? So Tony Schwartz is the ghostwriter for Art of the Deal. So he worked with Donald Trump. He got to know Donald Trump. He thinks that her denying him the State of the Union is one way to end the shutdown. Interesting theory, but I don't know for sure. But anyway, now, nonetheless, from what we can see now, Trump plans to hold the government hostage until he gets funding for that wall. So now he's got to think it's worth it, right? I mean, that is something that maybe the American people want. Well, okay, let's take a look at the numbers. Now, there's a recent poll carried out by Politico and Morning Consult. Now, they found that 43% of registered voters support Donald Trump's wall. Man, that's 43% of registered voters. That is a big chunk of people that are like, yes, let's build a wall. That's fairly disastrous, in my opinion, because I don't think the wall would actually do anything. Now, they want to build that wall no matter what, right? Even if it means shutting down the government. Actually, no, that's not it at all. So how many of those 43% of registered voters that are in favor of building that wall, right? These are Trump fans that are like, we're worried about border security and immigration. How many? Only 7% of American voters support giving Donald Trump funding for his border wall to end the government shutdown. Only 7%. Again, these are Trump supporters that are like, build the wall. We're scared of immigrants because, again, that's fear, right? That's the motivator. But at the same time, we really don't want you to end our food stamps. Now, look, of course, I say don't shut down the government for your ridiculous border wall. That's ridiculous. I just repeated myself twice. But look, here's the thing. That wall, as I said before, is not going to work. And it's really a solution in support of a problem, or I'm sorry, in search of a problem. And it's not even a good solution. It's a terrible solution. It's an unworkable solution. And yet, he's pushing for it. Now, of course, you guys know why. But first, let me go to how he's been doing in the polling. Now, remember, when President Trump first got elected, and not only that, but leading up to the election, Donald Trump talked about polls all the time. Oh, the polls are so fantastic. Look at the polls. I'm doing great in the polls. Especially versus crooked Hillary, right? And, oh, the people love me. I'm doing fantastic. Look at my approval rating. He doesn't talk about that anymore. You want to guess why? Oh, it's because his disapproval rating is now at an all-time high. In fact, 57% of Americans say that they disapprove with Donald Trump's job performance. Now, and a lot of that is fueled by this government shutdown that most people, most Americans don't really want. In fact, there was a Washington Post article written where they traveled to Michigan, they talked to Trump voters, and I actually quoted that in a story that I did a few days ago. And most of them say, well, look, this shutdown is dumb. It makes no sense. In fact, Jeremiah Wilburn, 45-year-old operating engineer from Michigan, he voted for Trump. He told the Washington Post, quote, "It's ridiculous," referring to the shutdown. You know, you're not getting the wall built for $5 billion. And Mexico is not paying for it. We all know that too. Meanwhile, it's starting to turn people like me away. Even Trump voters know that this entire shutdown business is dumb. He's holding the government hostage. Food stamps are going to run out. People are looking at getting evicted from subsidized housing. And you know, most people on those government programs are white people, a lot of rural people, even a lot of Trump supporters, a lot of Trump voters take advantage of, and I don't mean take advantage in a bad way, but take advantage of these systems that are put in place to help people in poverty. They're in poverty, which means they get access to these systems. Now, undocumented immigrants don't get access to these systems, yet for some reason they believe they do. And so a lot of Republicans are like, yes, we need to build that wall. But that's not true at all, right? But anyway, there's also TSA agents that are increasingly calling in sick to go probably work at their second job because they got to pay the bills somehow, right? On and on and on. And there are more negative effects that are incoming as this shutdown goes on. If this is a political calculation, it's probably the worst that I've ever seen. But in reality, it's not a political calculation. Yes, it's political, but there's no calculating involved. Donald Trump's not smart enough to do that. No, what this is about, this whole thing about, is it's about his ego. It's a vanity project. Donald Trump wants something big to put his name on, right? Again, all about the ego. It's all about nothing but the ego. And so he's willing to continue this ridiculous shutdown, this harmful shutdown, because all he cares about is himself. Not you, not the people who are working for the government, not even the thoughts of his and desires of his own constituency, his own supporters, who are massively against shutting down the government for the wall. He does not care about that because it's only always a bet about Donald Trump. Okay. So let's take a break here. We'll come back. We got the Coast Guard on the shutdown as well. Then we'll have some fun with Ben Stein. So stay right here. Come back. I'm going to give some member shout outs when we come back from the break, as well as super chats. So stay right here. Around the Nation. Everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. I want to give a shout out to our newest channel member, Cynthia Hills. So thank you, Cynthia, for becoming a member here on YouTube. It's $4.99 to support the show. So thank you so much. All right, let's dive into some more of the stories here. All right. We'll go to another shutdown story. All right. Excuse me. All right. So Donald Trump's shutdown has entered its fifth week, and the heads of various departments are beginning to speak out. Now, one of those is the Coast Guard. Now, according to CNN, the commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard said on Tuesday that the situation was unacceptable. The fact that Coast Guard members are not getting paid and now have to rely on food pantries and donations due to the shutdown. This is Commandant Admiral Carl L. Schultz. He said in a video to his service members, he said, quote, "We're 5+ weeks into the anxiety and stress of this government lapse and your non-pay. You, as members of the armed forces, should not be expected to shoulder this burden." Now, what's interesting about this statement is that he's basically spelling out, this is what we're going through, this is how difficult it is, without actually calling out Trump, because he's actually not able to. So, as a member of the Coast Guard, right, can't actually criticize the president, but from the statement, it's very strong, a very strong statement, right? But it is, actually, the anxiety and stress of the government lapse. And he says, you should not be expected to shoulder this burden. Schultz said he and the Coast Guard leadership team stand in awe of your continued dedication to duty and resilience in that of your families. He said he was also heartened by the outpouring of support from local communities across the nation. But, he said, ultimately, I find it unacceptable that Coast Guard men and women have to rely on food pantries and donations to get through day-to-day life as service members. It is unacceptable. He's absolutely right. It is unacceptable for anybody to have to rely on food pantries to live, especially if you're working. And look, that's what a lot of these people end up having to do in the Coast Guard right now. And a lot of government workers are also lining up at food pantries to be able to feed their families. And a lot of people are merely being hurt by this shutdown. And the president, the Republicans in Congress, people like Mitch McConnell, ultimately don't care. So, and by the way, why is it Mitch McConnell's fault? As I pointed out in previous videos, McConnell continues to refuse to take up a bill opening up the government. Now, why? Well, of course, these bills, passed by both the House and the Senate before, rejected by Trump, would likely get enough support now to override a presidential veto. Now, this is a bill without funding for the wall. McConnell says, I'm not going to take up anything that's not going to have funding for the wall. Now, why is that? That's because McConnell's a political creature. He's making a political calculation that standing strong for a wall that is deeply unpopular and supporting a shutdown that is also deeply unpopular, even among Trump supporters, is somehow a great political calculation. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he's got some different internal polling, right? Again, only 77% of voters think we should think that we should fund the wall in order to end the shutdown, right? The other 93% is filled with people who both support and oppose the wall on policy grounds that say don't play games with the government. Don't play games with these people's jobs, these lives, and people who depend on this program. Don't hold hostages in order to get what you want. Do it some other way. Get your funding some other way. Don't use government as a hostage to get your policy goals, especially ones that won't even actually work. As I've said before, I point out every time that a majority of newly undocumented immigrants are people that fly in and overstay their visas. That's what happens. And it's been that way for at least the last 7 years, the 7th year in a row, that people flying in and overstaying visas is the primary driver of undocumented immigration. It's not border crossings. It's not people crossing the border. That's the problem. No, most immigrants come here and overstay their visas, become undocumented, and that's what happens in this country. And that's a fact. Now, the problem here that we have is a president who's putting a vanity project above the good of the country and acting like a child who won't get his way. Not only that, but we again have skeevy politicians like Mitch McConnell who continue to refuse to put a bill on the floor to have a vote. Again, that vote would likely win, and we would overrule President Trump's veto, opening the government and funding these things like the Coast Guard and food stamp recipients and things like that. But unfortunately, he is in the way. There are two people in the way of ending this shutdown, and one is Donald Trump. So, look, how do we fix this? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know when the shutdown's going to end. But I do know that if you want to prevent something like this from happening, you've got to get these politicians out of office that think it's a great idea to hold the government hostage over something that should be routine, and that's passing a freaking budget. You want to, like, if you don't want to do your job, then we're going to get rid of you. Okay, anyway. I think it's fair to say, if you don't actually want to work, then maybe you should stop being a bum or get fired. I mean, you'd never be able to get away with that in the private sector. And yet here we have these politicians that continue to do it. Okay. Let's head to the Ben Stein story. So on Tuesday, actor Ben Stein made a little bit of a ridiculous comparison when talking about AOC and specifically her tax proposals to tax wealthy people who are making over $10 million at 70% for anything over that $10 million. Now, he made this comparison, like I said, on Fox News when talking about the situation in, surprise, Venezuela. Let's take a look.
I mean, they've tried, right? They tried, and Hugo Chavez had all kinds of promises, just like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Maduro had the same kind of promises. In fact, and we're going to show this a little bit later, the former vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, I say former because we no longer recognize her regime there with Maduro, she'll sit there and tell you with a straight face that Venezuela is the model of the world, despite the fact that 90% of the people live in poverty. Venezuela has figured it out. I just hope, Ben, we don't go through the same kind of incarnations and challenges that they have had to deal with.
Well, it depends on education. I mean, we have a society in which there are an awful lot of people who have no idea that Stalin, Hitler, Mao Zedong all came to power promising the same kinds of things that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez is promising, and it led to mass murder, it led to dictatorship, it led to genocide. These promises are old promises, and they invariably lead to bad things.
Over 90% of Venezuelans live in poverty. I'm sorry. I had to on that one. Like, it's almost like she's like so proud delivering this. She's like so focused on saying how horrible Venezuela is. And look, the situation in Venezuela is terrible. And so, you know, you can't ignore that. But at the same time, wait, you're going to compare AOC's modest tax proposal for marginal taxes on the ultra wealthy to not only Venezuela, but now Stalin, Hitler, and Mao Zedong. Oh no, they had all these promises about marginal tax rates. No, I don't think that's what happened. I don't remember Hitler promising a 70% tax rate on ultra wealthy Germans. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. But you know what I do recall seeing in history? In the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the middle class growing, right? And having a high marginal tax rate on the rich, sometimes in excess of 70%. In fact, 70%, it never dipped below. So I'm just saying. Now, of course, Ben Stein leaves out more context. He leaves out the fact that there was, in these countries, pre-revolution, institutional corruption and rampant poverty, high levels of wealth and income inequality. You know what those things lead to? Those kind of lead to revolutions. And so, Now, unfortunately, those revolutions ended up oftentimes in oppressive dictatorships, which we have seen. But the situation, like what leads to this, is all of those different factors that right now in America, we are absolutely ignoring. Rich people are saying, oh no, have some cake. While there are people literally in Alabama getting hookworm because they lack basic sanitation. Oh, but here, this cake is delicious. How about you have some of it? Look, I'm just saying, maybe they should stop telling us to eat that cake, and maybe they should start paying their fair share of taxes so that we as a society can actually take care of our own and have nice things. But of course, that's not going to happen, and he's going to continue with this terrible, terrible comparison. Take a look.
The promise of just saying to people, do what you can within the law to make your life better and your family's life better, that system works extremely well. Capitalism is a system that allows people to make something of themselves instead of oppressing other people. It's an incredibly good system. Making money is one of the most harmless things there is to do in the whole world, and that's what our society is about. It's not about ordering people around, putting them in concentration camps. What do you do if a person is a richer person and a poorer person? What do? You take him away? Do you shoot him? Well, that's what the communists tried. It didn't work out very well for them.
I mean, what do you do as a rich or poor person? You take them out and shoot. Well, that escalated very quickly. Nobody is talking about shooting rich people. What we're talking about, and I love how it's compared to the same thing, right? Asking people making over $10 million a year to contribute more in taxes is somehow the same thing as taking rich people out and shooting them. That is ridiculous. And I love how he says, well, what's wrong with making money? Making money is one of the most harmless things that you can do. Actually, no. It depends on how you do it. See, if you exploit people and their labor to make money, well, then it's not harmless. If you destroy natural habitats, pollute rivers and streams, or pollute the air and the soil, well, that's not harmless. If you pay your employees so little that they're destitute while you're buying a second yacht, that's not harmless. If you go to other countries and exploit native populations for, natural resources, like, for example, blood diamonds, that is not harmless. Or, when you have places in Bangladesh that are so lax on safety measures that buildings literally catch on fire and fall on top of you while you're working for substandard wages. That's not harmless. So, excuse me if I don't agree with that premise that, oh no, making money is the most harmless thing that you can do. Says somebody who's never actually probably had to work. Look, right now, what we have is a situation where there are so many companies now, and American capitalism is built on this, is built on the backs of regular working people. And it's an inherently exploitive practice. So that's what's going on here, right? That's the kind of situation that does lead eventually to violent revolution. And I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't know anybody who wants violent revolution, right? I abhor violence. I'm a non-violence person, right? I'm just saying that historically, it has turned out that once you have situations that are bad enough for, a majority of the populace, while most of that money, that wealth has accumulated at the top, usually something happens to knock those people off the top. And so they can either do it, and this is not a threat, but they can either do it voluntarily to redistribute a little bit of their wealth, and they can still be wealthy. They can still be millionaires. right? And they can still have the best of everything and still have a lot of money. But you've got to do some redistribution so that everybody else can have a chance too. Everybody going to have a chance for education and to have healthcare. That's like the opposite of fascism. That is the opposite of being oppressed. It's actually having opportunity, like healthcare and education, etc. So, and look, instead of going down that road of like the bad road, let's choose the good road, right? Let's go back to the tax rates when we were in the 1960s, when the economy was booming and the middle class was large and it was vibrant. So, I mean, that would be my suggestion. Now, that said, right? So we went through the segment, and it's out there, and Media Matters tweeted this out, and it had some pretty good responses. So I'm going to read a couple of those. Now, Alex Wild tweeted in a very good point. He said, Ben Stein's party literally built internment camps for children in the United States. That is a devastating point. Michael Raskin says, Ben Stein to America, be poor and be happy you are. And you enjoy that cake. I mean, why don't you just eat cake, poor people? God damn. Why don't you do that? Now, there's a couple more fun ones now. Annika Baranti Klein says, you know, we failed to take away Ben Stein's money when we had the chance. In reference to that old show. And then Stefan Sirasek, along the same line, says, new game show, tax Ben Stein's money. Yes. Look, here's the thing. More serious point to end on. You know what all this doom and gloom talk from the rich means? Again, Ben Stein's a very wealthy person. Pretty much everybody on Fox News and on television itself is fairly wealthy. They're all the same ones that are talking about how radical and how terrible this is. But you know who supports this tax policy? The American people. A large majority, even Republicans, right? Throughout every geographic area, support higher marginal taxes on the rich. That's why they constantly beat the drum. Venezuela, right? Punishing your rich. Why are you punishing the rich? They're just going to take your assets and they're going to leave. Why you got to punish wealth and success? They constantly beat that drum because they're afraid that they're losing. They're actually going to have to part with a little bit of their wealth. Again, those numerous polls show that a majority of the American people, about 59%, agree with their tax policy. And you have mainstream economists, Paul Krugman in the New York Times, saying actually her proposals are actually pretty modest and they make a lot of sense. It's only those rich people who feel threatened, right? Or the people at Davos who are pretty much laughing at this situation and calling people who believe in that 70% marginal tax rate communists, like Bill Gates, right? He was one of the ones who laughed. Look, man, you're going to call people who believe in that communists, then you're pretty much calling most of the American population, over half of them, communists. So you might want to not do that because it's ridiculous. So, no, it's only those people who think this is crazy because in reality, all they want to do is just hold on to their money. Okay. I do not have enough time for this Biden story. It is really freaking long. So I'm going to need to save that for tomorrow. Because again, I'm not going to have enough time to do this Biden story. Yeah, I'll save that. So I guess we're going to end out the show early because I didn't have anything else prepared. Sorry about that, but that's all right. Come back tomorrow. We'll have another fantastic show. So we'll do that. We'll have the Biden story. We'll have a bunch of other stuff as well. So again, we're going to head out for the day. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for giving us a like and a share. Appreciate it. Appreciate all that. Patreon, you can become a patron, patreon.com/TYT Nation. You can help the GoFundMe campaign, all that stuff. help us get a new camera and all that. But anyway, that's it. We're out of here. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow.